Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. You can submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contests and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. You know, Yak always says this, it's your time to shine. It's like I get one chance. You have like 4 an hour. It just seems so wantonly unfair.
You have many chances to shine. This is just one of them.
We can make this happen. If you want to read more, I will make you read more.
Right, but you don't tell him that it's his time to shine. That's the point.
He's always shining, though.
Right,
He's a superstar.
I know. And so now this is my time, as if, man, get ready and hopefully you can do it and pull this off. And frankly, I'm insulted.
Can't wait for Andy Bailey to get here.
Really?
21 minutes.
Wow. That's exciting to get people to listen right now.
Way to draw the listeners in.
Good job, buddy.
Well, it's your time to shine. You can hold on to them for 21 minutes. And
that would be called 4 hours for 23 years.
Yeah. We're sitting right on the anniversary date, aren't we?
It's April.
Yep. Giannis Antetokounmpo would score 250 points per game in the 1970s. It's a LeBron quote, which Stephen A. Smith immediately called disrespectful.
Well, those two have a little feud going on. I mean, I could barely handle Drake and who was he feuding with? Little Wayne, Big Wayne, medium-sized Wayne? I don't know.
Or Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar and,
Don't drag Lil Wayne into this.
Perkins. It's Lil, not Little. Man, you are so old white sometimes.
Yep, Mom, not shining. Here it is, not shining.
Little Wayne. Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne.
Get with the times. So now I got to hear this feud. I didn't get into the other feud. I ain't getting into this feud. But the idea, then obviously he's not going to score 250, but is he going to be better than he is right now if he would have played then? Or are those players then going to be worse than what they are right now? If they were suddenly Time Machine and whomever, some star of the 70s, Rick Barry, would he be any less good or not as good now? Would Giannis, if he went back to the 70s, would he be better than he is now? That's the point, as I took it.
The only thing I think I can compare it to here is Wilt at 7'1" in an era when there were 6'9", even with Wes Unseld, 6'6" guys playing center. Part of Wilt would just be awesome in any era because he was awesome, but how much more awesome was he?
I think he'd be awesome.
But how much more awesome was he because he did have a major size advantage on everybody, which he wouldn't have now. I think he'd still be awesome now.
I disagree.
But I don't think he'd be doing 50 points a game.
Why wouldn't he
now.
have a major size advantage?
Because there's a lot more 7-footers in the game now.
So how do you know he wouldn't be 7'4"? Why? He was an oddity then, but he's not an oddity now? Something's going on there. Why was that?
Well, if he were 7'4" now and could move, maybe he would do that. They've changed the rules, so that's another problem. With the 3-point shots and all of that. So, but I do think that part of his greatness was he was so much bigger than everybody else.
Okay.
Now maybe
so
he
was
would
Shaq.
Be. Yeah.
So, but that's 40 years later.
And there was more size then. Shaq had Tim Duncan to go against. And Bill Russell was 6'9".
He could eat. Shaq had nobody to go against. There was nobody as big as Shaq.
Right. But the Spurs still won championships while Shaq was in the league.
And the Celtics still won championships while Wilt
was in the league.
Yeah, so what difference does that make?
Let me ponder that for a minute. And when I get back to you, I'll start shining.
All right. I mean, not every point we make off the top of our heads is perfect. I understand that. But we're not talking about winning titles.
Yeah.
We're talking about the individual player.
Right.
Antetokounmpo, let's not make him out to be a combination of Russell and Jordan here. He's only won one.
Yeah.
And not to discriminate, only win one.
Only win one,
Right.
because Wilt only won two.
Right.
Winning a championship's a hard thing to do.
But, at the same time,
don't dismiss it.
because you can't go on that barometer because there was no free agency. So the Celtics returned the same team every freaking year for a decade. And they had a lot of good players in the
No free
league.
agency, no salary cap. Lots of things have changed.
Right. So I wouldn't pin it on that. I don't know that Antetokounmpo would be any better. I'd have to ask myself, would Wilt average 50? I'd probably say no.
But he'd still probably average 35.
What do they do to utilize his skills?
The floor more spread out. I mean, whatever he would lose because maybe they wouldn't go to him as often because they'd be out there shooting threes.
Right.
At the same time, he'd be inside going one-on-one. How would you help on him if you're matched up with all the three-point shooters? So depending on the coach and how often and the teammates and how often they throw the ball into him, I would have to imagine that Wilt would just be destroying people inside. How would you get enough bodies in there to help?
Yeah, when I see there's a bunch of 7-footers, okay, there's more 7-footers on the earth than ever, but most of them in the NBA are soft.
And Wilt could overpower guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if he's not getting 50, I don't know if he's getting that many possessions that he gets to use.
Right.
I figure he's still getting 30, 35, 40. I don't know. It would depend on the team, how they use him. This is all super
What
theoretical.
7-footers in today's game play like Wilt? Or
The
Shaq?
game's so different. Not
Or
really.
Nate
I mean,
Thurman or Bob Lanier.
I did just see
Any of
a
those guys.
clip. I wasn't watching the game, but Giannis had a dunk, and the announcer, oh, disrespectful the way he threw it down on his head. Now, partly that's, showmanship and salesmanship on the but it was just still, he overpowered a guy inside. He drove inside, pulled up. The guy didn't stop quite on a dime, and that was just enough daylight for him to pivot and just dunk right on the guy's
because there's
head.
nobody to get in his way.
Yeah.
You got like maybe 2 guys. The days of Mark Eaton are gone.
Got to be able to move. Yeah.
They're not returning. And that's
True.
not, I'm not saying Mark Eaton couldn't move, but Mark
would be
Eaton
hard.
protects the rim at all costs. Nobody protects the rim at all costs. Maybe Gobert.
Right.
And if he had an offensive game, he probably wouldn't be doing it. He'd say, get some other grunt in there to do it. But he's smart enough to know this is how I'm going to make my millions because I don't really have much of an offensive game. So I need to do this. And he not only leaned into it, he stormed into it. He understood what his skill set was and what value he brought to his team. And here we go. Good for him. And now he's made millions. He'll never have to work a second.
So will Wilt back then, or if you bring Wilt forward, is he at 30, 35, or 40, whatever? And Giannis is at 30 now. Would he be at 35 or 40 or whatever?
I don't think Giannis would be any different. I think Giannis would have to get stronger. Maybe he wouldn't be quite as effective.
The floor wouldn't be a spread for him.
It's not
that kind of drive.
He's good, and the skill that he has now, he'd have then, right? But there was no Lambeer willing to literally take out teeth if it meant stopping a bucket.
I did just see that. That popped up. You know the stuff they feed you on social media. You never know. I just saw Lambeer's foul
Against
on Bird yesterday.
Right, I saw it too.
Yeah.
And so they go at it, and
Yep.
Bird
throws the ball, and
I mean, my gosh, we would have a congressional investigation if that happened today.
We would. That'd be awesome.
And there they just go on, and they don't run to see caucus at the drop of a hat, and they play on.
The refs sorted out. Actually, LeBron, I think Bird got kicked out for that.
He did. They showed him walking out.
Walking off the floor.
But he walked off the floor, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And so Lambeer played within the rules, which allowed for outrageous fouls that went over the line and were cheap shots. Yes, that's the way the game is. If you went in the air inside the key, you were taking your own life into your hands. Now they're running to Secaucus every 2 seconds, and these referees have gained a little bit of celebrity as they come to the mic. It's just so boring when they do that. I mean, geez, these, you can go to a park and see guys figure it out. And here we have to run to Secaucus every 2 seconds. Drives me nuts. Get on with it already. So there was a foul and guys huff and puffed. Whoop they freaking do? We're playing powder puff over here.
That'd be awesome if you just photobombed one of those. Whoop-de-freaking-do! Move the game along!
Well, it's too much. And then they barely make a call, and then you have everybody, a thing is made, and they're running, circling their fingers as if it's a home run in baseball. They use it to, let's run to the monitor, run to the monitor, run to the monitor.
Replay it.
How about we put the ball in play and run down the other side of the floor? So I think Giannis would have to adjust his game, but he would adjust his game. He would. There's no doubt in my mind he could be as effective. Wilt wouldn't necessarily be as statistically dominant, but would his teams be better? Which is ultimately the only thing that matters? Is your team winning?
Yeah, in a whole different era, with free agency, would people have flocked to play with Wilt? Boy, how many people would have said, I'm going to play with that guy. I'm going to get shots with that guy. They got to double him. And it couldn't happen in that.
And just think of off the floor, the possibilities.
Right.
Because we know what Wilt was about.
20,000 was the number.
Right. There's only like 2 guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame who've reached 20,000. That's the truth.
Really?
Tom Chambers is one of them, isn't he?
It's only 8:19 on
Tom
Friday.
Chambers is one of them.
Give us 40
Why
minutes,
isn't Tom
okay?
Chambers in the Hall of Fame? I've seen less players not be. Tom Chambers belongs in the Hall. We're dissing Dale Murphy and Tom Chambers here.
Yes. Well, if they played in New York, it'd be a different story. They'd be in.
Wow, geez, he played in the desert, man.
Yeah, I know.
That meant a lot to me.
To you.
Because I wasn't living there when he played there.
Detail. Don't get in the way.
So I think the great ones would make the necessary adjustments. That's why I would absolutely love to see Stockton play today. I really would. In his prime. People remember John in his mid-30s there. No. Go back when he was 26, 27, 28. And he was running around with all sorts of athletic ability. He wasn't beat you on guile. He had guile then, but he also had incredible athletic ability. I don't care that he was a little 6'1" white dude. No. He put the ball in his hand, and it was like a freaking Nolan Ryan fastball coming at you.
He had a 20-20 game. Actually, I think it was more than that. I think it's 27 points or something. But he broke the 20-point mark in points and assists in the same game against the Lakers in the playoffs when Lakers had Magic and Kareem and won the championship.
And Cooper.
And they
did.
Koopa Loop.
Yeah.
Loop.
And he would go for 32 and 14 today. I fully believe that. With the three-point line and the skill level, which I think is more increased, he brought the ball up 98% of the time. Well, not now. If somebody's got it and they've got the ability to bring the ball up, he could come up. I mean, I'm watching the Laker game last night, and there's really no true, the way we define point guard back in our day growing up, on that floor. Curry's not one. Doncic isn't one. LeBron can do it, but we don't recognize. And the point I'm making, and Draymond Green brings the ball up. And so if Stockton was freed of having to bring the ball up and look over to the coach and have him give him a play and then going down, if he was open in the corner, shooting, 46% from three, his scoring average would go up way more.
I really can't visualize Stockton shooting corner threes. That's just not like a part of the court that the offense was ever designed for him to go to.
Right, because it was a different time.
It was a different time.
But the great ones, Jerry Sloan wouldn't adjust. He would adjust 2 ways. He would adjust how to beat you offensively and how to contain you defensively, which is the essence of the game. You've got a coach like Jerry Sloan, who there is not a coach born on planet Earth who I think higher of. And that's saying a lot because I sort of liked Bill Parcells.
What about Frank Kush?
I was a little bit from our time. Not entirely, though.
Yeah.
But the legend of Frank Kush was made before I got there. Because, he started coaching, I think, in the 50s, didn't he? Something
Got
like
me.
that. I think
Yeah.
like,
I associate him with the 60s and 70s. I don't know.
right, but started coaching. I'm
yeah.
talking about. He made his
Just-
mark
just
as it got going.
Right.
But a tough dude like Frank Kush. Oh, would I have loved to seen Frank Kush and Jerry Sloan have a meeting and listen to them? Oh yeah, you think you're tough? Let me tell you what I did. Oh yeah, I was just setting the table. Here's what I really did. You wanted toughness? Those guys had it, man.
DJ PK, Andy Bailey's coming up next. We're giving away Utah hockey tickets at 8:50. Pablo Mastrone's here at 9 o'clock. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
There's a couple of rinks here and there, but that's the point. It's hard to find. And so if you build 5 more rinks within 20 miles of Salt Lake, kids are going to play.
What I like about that is the culture part. If you feel that this market is ripe to be a really passionate hockey market, it requires playing the long game a little bit.
It does.
That's what I like about it.
Absolutely, it does.
And we do have potential. We're a winter sports market. And I believe this as a hockey market. It seems like it would fit right in like a glove. Kind of like the NBA in a different way. I think the NBA fit here really well because, in part, every church has a gym. For those reasons, I think hockey has a ton of potential.
I imagine you played junior jazz, right?
Yep.
I did too. Every boy did, and most girls did. Do that with hockey.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
PK, there's a little transfer news floating around out there. How about that?
That's what I hear.
You want to tell the people what you heard?
I haven't seen it, but Yak said the kid from UVU, Carter Willing, went to Quarter Canyon. He's going to go to Clemson.
All the way across the country, but that's ACC money.
Yeah, for sure. And I knew that BYU was interested, but I didn't think it was a fit to what Kevin Young wants to have in his offensive scheme because I think he's bringing the NBA with him, and his most recent stop was Phoenix. And, you had Durant and Booker doing their thing. And I think he's looking for his big guys to get in there, defend, block, and rebound, set screens, and that type of thing. And the wing dudes getting a lot of the pub. Obviously, Richie Saunders totally blossomed under Kevin Young. Not to say that he couldn't have done it under Mark Pope, but he did do it under Kevin Young. And so I think that's probably a better fit. I'm not going to tell you I know a lot about Clemson's basketball team, but it seems to me it's probably a better fit than it would have been at BYU.
Well, possibly that's a factor. I just have to admit I was curious because Welling can go, shoot threes at the top of the key in that, and does that open more room for slashers? And does A.J. DeBanz have no help defense, and it's easier to get to the room? Play 5 out. But, if you got Keita, that's not what you're going for, Right.
When you got DeBonce and Saunders, you got all the slashers you need.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined by Andy Bailey, NBA analyst and writer for Bleacher Report. Andy, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Excellent. You have been watching the NCAA tournament, no doubt. Has it changed your opinion of players, or has it confirmed what you already thought?
Probably. I would say probably more confirmation than anything else. I guess the one guy that I'm certainly not alone in this, but maybe the one guy that has grown on me during the tournament is Clayton from Florida. Has been really interesting. I mean, his shot making in that last game was obviously spectacular in the comeback. So I think he's probably changed his stock a little bit. I would say I've actually kind of thought all season, I wonder why Cooper Flagg is not getting more hype. I think back to Zion Williamson's freshman year or Anthony Davis and just think I felt like there was a lot more buzz around each of those guys throughout their freshman campaign. And it was, at least to me, felt kind of quiet on the Flagg front, but I think that's grown over the course of the tournament too. And I think more people are starting to realize this guy could be a very real franchise changer. So maybe the general consensus on him has changed a little bit too.
So you're a little younger. I always thought than LeBron. I always thought with your wisdom that you impart that you had to be in your 50s.
No, I'm a little younger than LeBron. I guess we're around the same age. He came out in, what year was he drafted? Like 03 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And I graduated high school in 05. Oh. So I'm just a tad younger than him.
Oh, but yet such wisdom, man. Must be.
Well, I do appreciate that.
As far as Collier, He set the record for most Jazz assists by a rookie, you know what I mean, the other day. What do you think they've gotten that kid?
A really solid playmaker. He's had a very fascinating season to me. I don't know if you guys know about the huge nerd index thing that I do once or twice a week throughout the regular season, where it kind of takes all the advanced, all-in-one numbers from around the internet and kind of tries to aggregate them into one. And he was hovering at or near the bottom for most of the season, and I think that almost was entirely tied to his shooting. But when he got more opportunities to play, you saw that this, shooting can come in time. What he has is a natural knack for finding players in the right spot, kind of manipulating the defense. I think he's pretty good at playing with pace for a player his age, which I think is very important for a point guard. He's not always going 100 miles an hour, which is sort of the tendency for a lot of young guards. He has a really good feel for the game. And for a young player, I think that's more important than hitting shots. I think if you can see intangible stuff like that, and he has shown that over the last couple of weeks, maybe even a couple months at this point, I think there's some real upside for him as a playmaker. He's become one of the more interesting young players in the league to me.
We did a little exercise earlier ranking the Jazz 6 draft picks from the last 2 years, ranking them both on current production, but then also a separate list on potential. What do you see their ceiling as? You could do either one or both of those things if you'd like to run through them real quick. What do you think of these guys?
I was having a similar sort of internal exercise the other day. I was thinking about the offseason that the Jazz have in front of them, and obviously they would love to land the number one pick and get a potential franchise cornerstone, because they've gotten 6 guys in fairly early in the draft over the last 2 years, and I'm not sure any of them are franchise cornerstone level talents. Now that obviously doesn't mean that I don't think they can be rotation players. We just talked about Collier. I'm tempted to put him first among the 6 because of the like I mentioned, the feel and the playmaking. Those are things that always appeal to me. And the interesting thing about him, and I'm fascinated by a lot of draft prospects in this regard. Early in his freshman season, if I remember right, I think he was in a lot of mock drafts in like the top 5 to top 10.
Yes.
And he just had kind of a struggle campaign at USC and obviously fell pretty far, but maybe those initial projections were closer to reality than where he was picked. So at the risk of looking dumb in a couple of years, I think I'm going to put him first. I really like Keontae George still. I mean, there's a lot of ironing out in his game to do, but I think he could be a heat check type of a scorer. Bryce Sensabaugh has been interesting to me. Like, he probably doesn't have, and I hate doing this too, I hate putting a ceiling on a young player's potential, but to me, he doesn't seem like a guy with star upside, but he also seems like he has a pretty high floor. I think he could be a solid three-point shooting wing for years to come, so he's interesting to me. Filipowski's a guy who's shown some feel for the game, so I like him too. I'm missing Taylor Hendricks, obviously, because he's missed this whole season with an injury, so he's a tougher one to gauge. I think I need to see more on him. And then the one that I'm afraid I may have flat out whiffed on is Cody Williams. I was relatively high on him coming into the draft and out of the draft, but he has looked, I guess to put it nicely, lost all season. And it's very early. Like I hate when analysts declare within the first couple of years that, so-and-so's not going to make it, but there's not a lot of good evidence for him at this point.
Yeah, I was high on him too, and I thought that he should have been the pick, knowing where they would pick, because we know about a month before what their draft position is going to be. And they did this with Kessler. He played okay, and then Ainge sort of rained on it a little bit by saying he was playing with backups. And then he had a bad second season, And we've joked that, the Jazz think you're good if they come up with concocted reasons to keep you out of games down the stretch so they can maintain their lottery position and hopefully, obviously they're shooting for a flag and go from there. So what I'm thinking, though, is obviously this kid has got to work on his body and his game hours upon hours a day. In the off season, I mean, they put him on the thing with mono, and once he gets healthy, he's got to be right back in the weight room and the gym, and for no vacations. Who was it? Dan Hawkins over there in Colorado. Go play intramurals, buddy. You don't get time off, and that's what it's got to be for him. And so next season, I'm not going to say we need to see the finished product because that's ridiculous that someone who's only going to be 20, 21. But in my mind, we've got to see way more because we didn't see anything close to where we could feel good about Cody Williams this season.
I agree with all that. Like you said, there's still time. I mean, he's a young player, only played a year in college. He's not even 21 yet. Like there's time for him to develop. But I don't have the list offhand, but I would guess that the list of players in NBA history who got 1,000 minutes as a rookie and shot 32% from the field is very, very low. Or very, very short is what I should have said. And I've watched him several times and he'll get wide open looks from the three. And it's just, as soon as it leaves his hand, it's not close. And he's a player who has a shot that's kind of all over the place. Like the form looks different night to night. Like and he looks lost on defense. Like there's a laundry list of things that he's going to have to work on. And he's again, it's too early to call him a bust, but there's very, very long way to go for him.
Andy Bailey, NBA analyst and writer for Bleacher Report, joining us right here on The Zone. You've talked about Cooper Flagg in the draft. It would be awesome if the Jazz hit that top spot, but the odds are it'll go to somebody else. So if it goes to somebody else, is there another player you're really excited about? Do you stick to form like everybody else in the mock drafts?
I would say I'm probably mostly stick to form. I guess if Jazz fans aren't going to want to hear this, but if like worst case scenario, they get bumped down a few spots. I think Con Knippel's been really interesting too. It's probably a reach if you get him at 4 or 5. I don't even know what Utah's lowest possible
5
pick would be.
If they stay with the worst record, 5 is the worst. But there's a 47% chance they could end up at 5.
Yeah, so it's in play. Mm-hmm. Thank you, flattened lottery odds. He's fascinating to me. He's not like, I'm not going to be breaking any news. He's not like a eye-popping athlete or anything like that. But I've mentioned this a couple of times now. I just like guys who play with a feel for the game, and he has that. And more and more over the last few years, I've kind of prioritized skill over athleticism. Guys who can dribble, pass, and shoot right away are just at such an advantage. Now, the kind of scary thing about that is I also mentioned earlier that I don't think any of these 6 guys that they've gotten for the last 2 years have like superstar upside, and I'm not sure Knippel does either. So I don't know if you want to just keep adding to that collection that you've got. I think VJ Edgecombe is certainly very interesting. He's kind of the opposite. I mean, it's not that he's not skilled, but he's a freak athlete. And I think Utah might need something like that to go with this crop of guys that they're putting together right now. The other 2 are interesting too. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are certainly fascinating. I think they've probably fallen off a lot of radars because their team didn't make the tournament. But there are concerns with those guys too. Like I'm always hesitant on the high end, super athletic guard. Like it kind of reminds me of Scoot Henderson. Dylan Harper does. So that worries me a little bit. And Ace Bailey, I don't know. He's gotten a reputation for being a good, tough shot maker. And if you're a good tough shot maker in college, the fact that you're merely having to take tough shots in college is a little bit of a concern. So there are concerns with a lot of these guys. I think they all have great upside. Obviously, there's just a lot of eggs in the flag basket. And if Utah lands him, I think they're on a completely different trajectory than they are right now. And suddenly everything they've done for the last couple of years makes a lot more sense. And if they don't, it's still a little bit of a mystery.
I can see why you are really prioritizing skill, because you're on the other side of the mountains and you've been watching Jokic all this time. And I don't know that we've ever seen anybody as skilled across the board. I mean, in the old days, Bill Walton wouldn't have been shooting threes or whomever. So, the game has changed. Maybe those guys could have had it today. But obviously this guy's just his skill level is just incredible. With that in mind, because of OKC hasn't proven anything in the playoffs, and they're still, to an extent, an up-and-coming team, what level of what I would call wide openness do you see the Western Conference in the postseason?
The West is crazy. That's hard-hitting analysis there, and it has been for 25 years. And I wrote a story on this earlier this season about the imbalance of power between the East and the West, and how it's really I'm sure nobody wants to hear me whine, but it's honestly unfair to Western Conference teams because it's a bloodbath in the first round every year. And the answer to your actual question, I think like 2 through 8 is pretty wide open in the West. I actually think OKC is a clear favorite at this point. And they are, for the most part, unproven. They only made it to the second round last year. They are generally still a pretty young team. But they are built so well for the playoffs. They're adaptable. They can play big or small. They've got a superstar scorer, obviously. They've got so much perimeter defense, which I think is just a huge deal. Like, I can't remember who I was listening to the other day, but they were saying if Chet had been healthy all season, there was an argument to have all 5 of those guys, all 5 of their regular starters as all defense selections. And I had a hard time disagreeing with that. I mean, they are absolutely loaded. Statistically, too, some of their season-long indicators are record-breaking, record-shattering stuff. Like, they're on pace for the best point differential of all time. They're on pace for the best SRS of all time, which is point differential combined with strength of schedule. I think they just tied the 96 or 97 Bulls for the best net rating of all time. They have the most double-digit wins of all time for a single season. I wouldn't be stunned if one of these more experienced teams beat them in the playoffs, but I do think they're a pretty comfortable favorite right now.
Jimmy Butler had Miami in the NBA Finals twice in the last 5 years, and in a Game 7 of the Conference Finals in a third season. So he knows something about winning, and he didn't get the advantage of a training camp, and he comes in midseason at Golden State, and the record is turned around. PK was pointing out earlier this morning, his stats are not awesome, but he is clearly either making winning plays himself or helping other guys make winning plays. And maybe it goes back to what you said about just having a feel for the game and a way to run an offense and to space the floor and to keep the ball moving, whether you score the bucket or not. How good are they? Because they're tearing up the league now, and the sample size is about a quarter of the season. So are they the biggest threat to the Thunder, and is this really going to happen?
To answer the last question, or the second to last question, I guess, I think they probably are the biggest threat to the Thunder. I was just trying to I should know this because I finalized it like 10 hours ago. I'm pretty sure I have them 4th in the power rankings that we just published this morning. So the second Western Conference team, which I guess by default would make them the biggest threat to the Thunder. And as far as can this happen, I think they are very much in the mix to win it all. For Stephen Curry to still be performing the way he is at 37 feels almost miraculous. But a big part of it is the addition of Jimmy Butler. And, yeah, his numbers don't really jump off the screen, But he's one of the ultimate feel for the game guys. He makes winning plays on both ends all the time. Even if he's not shooting a ton, the threat of his scoring has taken some pressure off of Stephen Curry. He's a great playmaker for a wing player. I think he's averaging 6 assists for the Warriors. And I think their variety of playmaking makes them very dangerous because he's a good playmaker. Draymond is, and obviously Curry is too. And so they have this kind of dynamic. You don't know where the attack is going to come from. Offense, they've always tried to play that way, but now they're just much better suited to do it with Jimmy Butler than they were with Andrew Wiggins. I think they're very, very dangerous. One of the teams that could upset the Thunder. But like I said to the last question, there are a number of teams, like if the Thunder just got bullied inside by Jokic, that wouldn't stun me. If Luka went crazy on them like he did with the Mavericks last season, that wouldn't surprise me either. Like, there are just so many. I mean, even the Clippers. We have to talk about the Clippers now with the way that they've been playing lately and the way that Kawhi looks. Like, there are so many potential title contenders in the West. It seems like every team has one or two stars or superstar level players, and it's just going to be such a gauntlet as always to get through that side of the bracket.
I know that you're not a better basketball player than your brother Marcus, who was a great player for the University of Wyoming, but are you at least better than his son?
So that was a different brother that I was playing King of the Court with.
Okay, all right.
And that kid, I couldn't fit that into the tweet, but this kid's going to be a senior in high school, and he was just destroying me. And I'm 50 pounds overweight, and I'm almost 40 years old, so I'll give myself those excuses. But I have reached the age and the physical shape where I now struggle with some high school players. So that was a humbling Saturday for me.
All right. Well, keep trying.
Father
Maybe
Time
not the answer
undefeated.
you're looking for.
Just go with Father Time is undefeated and leave all the other stuff out.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's the easy way out right there.
Yeah.
Andy, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
DJ and PK, there is Andy Bailey, NBA analyst and writer for Bleacher Report. When we come back, we're giving away tickets to see the Utah Hockey Club take on the Seattle Kraken Tuesday night at the Delta Center. And Pablo Mastriani, RSL coach, is here at 9 o'clock. Stay with us.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
This show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bang!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's time to give away tickets to the Utah Hockey Club. They're going to play the Seattle Kraken Tuesday night at the Delta Center. Caller 12 at 801-575-ZONE will win a pair of tickets to watch the Utah Hockey Club Seattle Kraken game. Tuesday night at the Delta Center. Caller 12 801-575-ZONE.
Doesn't it impress you even more when the Bear, Torney, kind of misplaces a word or two in English? It's like, oh, yeah, he must really know hockey. English isn't his first language.
It's like hearing a Brazilian's or someone from Brazil or England is coaching soccer, and French Canadian is coaching hockey.
Right.
Clearly, they must know.
Right. So everything he
but
says.
But amongst all the French Canadians in Quebec or Ottawa, whatever, they must be looking like one guy over there. That guy, he doesn't know his stuff.
But
we don't know.
But this one does, because he gets about 90% of the English language, right? Mm-hmm. But it'll just be a little bit off, and that raises my level of respect for him. Think about it, man. This guy grew up where they're not speaking English. That's awesome. He knows hockey.
Clearly.
And he's a no-nonsense crap taker.
He is a no-nonsense guy. He'll play along. He'll do the media thing. He realizes he has to sell the sport, sell the team, and all that. But there are times where the discussion starts to go somewhere. He's like, nope, I've had enough. I'm ending this right here.
Yeah.
We're done talking about the goaltender playing every game.
He's J-Slow on skates.
Yeah. Now, let's not go that far.
He's not on skates now.
I don't know if he played hockey in the dirt on the farm, co-ed.
Well, I mean, it's hard to play that sport. Anything that isn't obviously a solid water surface.
Yeah. On the frozen pond there.
But, I'm sure he did. I did as a kid.
You played outdoors?
Yeah, I never played indoors.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I didn't really play hockey. But the lakes, I lived... The bigger area was called Parsippany, but then there was a smaller area within. It was called Lake Hiawatha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lake, you get the point?
Yeah, and it froze over and everybody would skate on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did that. But I wasn't, I never played any competitive hockey. Not like basketball and baseball, the usual. But you would put on skates, you would go, and they'd get the trash bins, not a bin, but a barrel. Mm-hmm. And put fire. And then the community would do it because we only lived 30 miles away from Manhattan, but they were all individual communities, far more community oriented than we have on this side of the country. And people would come out and then bring drinks.
Here we have anonymous suburbs that just kind of blend into each other.
And
it
wasn't
doesn't
that way.
Right.
Back east, no. I mean, you went to the high school game. Whether you had anybody on the team or not, it didn't matter because you knew everybody and everybody knew you. You know what I mean? So we would go when the lake, like on a Sunday night, the lake had frozen over, sure, and then you'd go and some of the guys were really good. Now, I want to make sure I'm not pretending that I'm not setting a false image here of me being a young Sidney Crosby or anything, but you would skate on them, and my mother loved to ice skate. And she loved figure skating. That was the only thing that we didn't have in common sports-wise.
So put on skates and
and just go around.
Go to the frozen pond.
Yeah. So
I never knew it was cold enough that it froze that thoroughly that everyone would be out skating on the lake in the New York area. I realize you're in Jersey.
Yeah, but I mean it's just the suburb.
Yeah.
But that did happen.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Pablo Mastroianni, RSL head coach. What has gone wrong? How can it be fixed? That's next. Stay with us.